Liev Schreiber made a big mistake, and he knows it. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, what's going on? I just wanted to take some time to talk about this article that just came out from a GQ interview with Liev Schreiber, who we obviously know very well as Cotton Weary in the Scream films, and also many other performances that I absolutely love him in, like Ray Donovan and so forth. But I wanted to talk about the statements that he made in this interview concerning specifically Cotton and how he changed the destiny of this character a little bit and his regrets. So we have the interview from GQ that basically talks about what had happened. And it says Liev Schreiber suggested Cotton Weary be killed off in Scream. Liev Schreiber was ready to kill off Cotton Weary in Scream, provided he be given the honor of being sliced and diced in the first act. And, it's kind of an interesting thing because we've seen, big characters be killed off in these movies, specifically talking about the Scream franchise, and even more so, very famous actors and actresses being killed off. It references, obviously, Drew Barrymore, Jada Pinkett Smith, and so forth. But here's the thing. Liev Schreiber is kind of regretting that decision. Speaking with GQ, Schreiber said he determined it was time for Cotton Weary to meet his fate in the Scream Then trilogy. But if he was going to go, it had to be in the first reel. He says, quote, "I kind of suggested that they knock me off. Part of the device of the movies was that somebody in the first 5 minutes gets killed, and we don't really expect them to get killed." End quote. This would come to fruition for Cotton in Scream 3, when he, now famous as a talk show host, is featured in the opening scene taking a phone call from a seductive voice who turns out to be, yes, Ghostface. Cotton Weary has a pretty strong arc for being a low-tier supporting character. After falsely being accused of the rape and murder of Sidney Prescott's mother, he next meets up with Sidney at Windsor College to spin the fame in a positive light, later rescuing her from killers Mickey and Debbie Salt, Mrs. Loomis. By the time we see him in Scream 3, he's a full-fledged Billboard blasted celeb. Now, to me, I'd always been a fan of Cotton as a character. He was very, very interesting, especially, what his character arc started to show in Scream 2. He was just interesting. And of course, Liev is a great actor and has just natural charisma, evidenced by his many other roles other than Cotton. And I must admit, in Scream 3, although it was a really good opening and a really good opening kill, I was disappointed. I was like, why are they killing Cotton? I really wanted to see how he was going to play into the mix of characters in Scream 3, specifically Sidney. But we didn't get to see that, unfortunately. And I'm kind of surprised hearing that he was the one that suggested it. I understand what he was thinking a little bit back then, but there's more insight that he gives us. The interview had talked about many wondered what would have become of Cotton Weary had he outlasted Roman Bridger in Scream 3. Schreiber included, quote, "At that point in my career, I didn't really fully understand the value of being in a franchise. To be frank, I was like, let me get out of this while I can, get out while things are going well. I just thought it would be fun to be one of the iconic kills from the top. I was working and doing a lot of other stuff in New York and theater, and I was just like, how many times can I play this character? Now I realize you can play that character as many times as they want you to." In short, he wouldn't have minded turning up in Scream 5. Now, when you think about this information and you kind of take it all into consideration, I totally understand where he's coming from. But the reason I wanted to reference his quotes and so forth, his story, is because I think it really gives you a sense of where horror was back then and where it's at today. I dare say horror is a bit more respected today. And I do think that is true. You have a lot of well-known actors and actresses that are involved in horror in many of these long-standing franchises and so forth. and they're actually getting recognized for their performances a bit more than they used to. More so from critics, not in the sense of the Academy Awards. I do think that that is still an issue. There have been many great performances by actors and actresses in the horror genre or the thriller genre that do not get the recognition that they deserve, and it's a shame. Hopefully, at some point that will change. It would be great if that would happen soon. But where Liev was coming from was, let me get off of this while the getting is good. He didn't think that this franchise would go as long as it did. And I understand that. But here's the thing. I personally think that his thought process was a bit off. And I'm not necessarily, blaming him. I'm just talking about how things were back then, the way versus the way that they are now. And I think it's too bad because we have seen many actors and actresses from the past come back to franchises and be a part of them, and sometimes be a very strong part of those things. I guess his story should be kind of like a cautionary tale to actors and actresses. And I'm not saying he didn't respect the work he was doing or didn't respect the franchise or let alone the great Wes Craven. But I do think today in the horror genre, I think actors and actresses or anyone involved with these projects or franchises definitely should realize that the horror community is very, very supportive and very, very passionate. And even if you're involved in a film that people aren't the biggest fan of, or even if you're a character that people aren't the biggest fan of, you will have those that will support you. You do have those that will recognize you. And whether it's in conventions or on, different shows or interviews or in public or what have you, there's a lot of support that you literally could have for the rest of your life. That's definitely been evident in conventions, and you see folks that have been a part of movies 30, 40 years ago. And I think it's actually a really cool thing, and you don't see that as much in some of the other genres of film. You do see it in sci-fi, definitely in sci-fi, but I think horror is miles ahead of what a lot of other genres are doing as far as its talent behind the camera as well. When you talk about cinematographers, when you talk about makeup effects and practical work and stuff like that, there are a lot of artists and people that work behind the camera that still get the recognition that they deserve for the work that they put in, because they're sure not getting the recognition from a lot of other places, as far as the critics, especially for films that were back in the 80s and the 90s. So I will say, I feel kind of bad that Liev made that choice, but at the same time, it's kind of like it was a time where I don't think people really looked at what they were doing as something that would last 20, 30, 40, 50 years into the future. And it's too bad. But again, could be a cautionary tale to a lot of the actors and actresses and people that work behind the camera with these horror movies, these horror franchises, and so forth, to understand that you're a part of something that could live on in many sequels or a long-standing franchise, or it could just be a one-off. But there are people that will support you. There are people that still love movies like Black Christmas, and obviously long-standing franchises like Halloween or Friday the 13th or Texas Chainsaw Massacre and so forth. So it doesn't, to me, as a fan myself, it doesn't really matter if it's just one film, two films, or 12 or 13 films. You literally have a community of fans and other people that recognize they have an appreciation for what you do. And I think that's very, very special. So unfortunately, it looks as though Liev made a decision that was not great as far as him still being connected to the Scream franchise. But of course, I absolutely love the work he did do as Cotton Weary. But you guys, tell me what you think about his comments and the way he's kind of looking back on it with the regret. Do you agree with him? Should he not have said that he wanted Cotton to be killed off and kept going for as long as they would have allowed him to? Would you have liked to seen him in these newer Scream movies as a character that returns, like Kirby did in Scream 6 or Judy in Scream 5? Let me know in the comment section down below. Please give the video a like. It'll help to support the channel, and I appreciate it. And if you are not subscribed to the Nightwatch Zone, this is the time to do it. So please do it. Hit the subscribe button, also the bell notification, and I'll catch you guys later. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you're the Nightwatch. Peace.